Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Hope everyone's doing well so far. As today, in the spirit of Autism Acceptance and Awareness Month, I would like to do a formal introduction to who I am and what I do and how I got to this point in my life where I'm doing a podcast and running this platform, the Autism Experience. As while I have alluded to my background and my experiences in the past through my previous podcast and my previous Instagram post, well, I have done that in the past. I haven't quite actually done an entire podcast or a formal introduction to myself where you get every essence of who I am more directly. So, with that said, I want to start off by giving you all a little spiel about my background. So, my name is Ken. I'm an autistic adult. I was diagnosed at an early age, around 5 to 6 years old. I'm the son of Vietnamese war refugees, the generation of boat people that came to the United States from Vietnam after the end of the Vietnam War, around 1970s and 1980s. And I have one older sister, Quinn, who's a singer-songwriter, really talented, by the way, love her, who you can find on Instagram at Quinn Mariah or on Spotify or wherever you get your music at Quyne. That is Quinn. So check her out if you're interested in her work, and hope you all enjoy the content that she's putting out there, which is fantastic, by the way. So, other than my family, I am currently a graduate student studying for my master's in statistics at California State University, East Bay. I'm expecting to graduate at around May of 2023, which is next year. And on my off time, I like to go hiking, I like to work out, I like to do kickboxing, I like to be a foodie and go out and explore different food places or just walk around different parts of the city with my friends or family. And I also like to engage in deep and meaningful conversations with people about all things philosophical or social or moral and so on and so forth. So that's just the general gist of what I like to do and a little bit about who I am. Now let's get on to my personal story and how I came to be. How do I got to this point where I'm doing this podcast? So to start off, let's start with where I was born. So I was born in California on July 7, 1997 to a family of Vietnamese war refugees. My mom's currently working as a library assistant at a college. My dad, he's retired at the moment, but he used to work in construction and a lot of skilled labor jobs. So he was kind of a blue collar worker, as the best way I could describe it. And I have one older sister, Quinn, and for me, I was diagnosed at a young age, around 46 years old, which led to me being placed in special education, which is this program that's designed to accommodate and support students with learning disabilities. While implementation of special education varies from state to state, locality to locality, the general understanding is that typically they have smaller classroom sizes than a typical classroom. So 6 to 9 students versus, say, maybe 25 to 30, as you would find in a conventional classroom setting. Modified classroom curriculum that's designed to be slower and more considerate of the different educational needs and learning paces of students in the class. You also have speech therapy services incorporated into the classroom schedules of the students. Sometimes opportunities for more play for students and less lecture. And also other privileges and benefits that are accrued to students in these programs, such as maybe more field trips, opportunities to maybe get some more additional services on top of the speech therapy services that may be getting, such as adapted PE, and many others that are probably not listed here, that are probably out there in the program. So that's kind of a gist of what I had to do when I was in growing up, I did special education for like 5 to 6 years, and while I don't have much of an opinion of it, as a lot of what occupied my attention at the time were other things, I would say that the program was okay. Not perfect, but also not bad. As I did enjoy a lot of the interactions I had with my teachers. I enjoyed being able to play with my classmates who all had similar disabilities like mine, and were really passionate and joyful folks to be around. And overall, despite some rough patches, it was kind of fun, though. But it didn't come without some issues, though, as one of the issues I had to deal with was bullying. While I did talk about a lot of traumatic experiences that I've had in high school and elementary school, the big thing that kind of tied them all together was bullying. For I remember being discriminated against a lot as a kid because of my disability. They would make fun of the fact that I had trouble socializing with other students. They would make fun of the fact that I was in special education program, which some students viewed as inferior to their programs, and just a lot of issues that just point to how I was constantly misunderstood and misjudged as a student, which really negatively affected my own personal development and made it difficult for me to have friends, and oftentimes left me alone by myself for much of my time in school. For I didn't have a lot of friends, I didn't have many to talk to, and I had a hard time to connecting with just anyone in general. And it didn't help that the schools that I went to were often rife with issues such as gang violence, drug use, and broken homes that people came from. And while I understand all of that, it didn't excuse a lot of the mistreatment that I got from other students and sometimes some teachers. Well, although what the teachers did were not as severe as what the other students did to me, but they're still problematic, though. So on top of bullying, another issue that I had with it was just the fact that I don't like the way learning is sort of approached in most K-12 settings. As for me, I find that I learn best when I'm doing hands-on and when I'm given the opportunity to think for myself and ask curious questions. As I find that critical thinking and nuance and creativity are the major pillars of growth and understanding, and not so much memorization, which, while helpful in some areas, sometimes comes at the cost of that individuality that's needed for growth and success. As I find that critical thinking and creativity are not just valuable in innovation, they also help protect you against being manipulated and feeling dependent on other people, especially when those authority figures you may depend on may not be perfect, or as you might think they are, and also in situations where you're alone and you can't rely on anyone. As while we do need community in some areas, there are some areas that only you can tackle yourself. As we're all unique individual beings with our traits of our own and interests and so on and so forth. And part of respecting that individuality and helping each person grow into their best and fully realized selves is by not applying one-size-fits-all approaches that advantage other people but disadvantage other people. So I think of critical thinking as a way to build up people to be the best individual beings that they can be. So while I might ruffle some feathers among some of you, I feel that it's something that's very important to me, and I think it's really helped me learn much better than, say, just blind memorization of whatever it is the teacher's lecturing at me. Which, while it's easy, I feel it just sets people up for failure. So an ideal education system would be one that fosters individual growth while still building community. Focus not just on material aspects of education, but also on the spiritual and moral and personal enrichment of education that can't be measured by money or numbers. And unfortunately, the schools I went to didn't quite have that kind of environment that fitted my learning needs. So while I did try to alleviate that by taking AP courses wherever I could, and by just doing activities outside of class where I could, I was still stuck in that conformist-based system, which is generally much of K to 12, which ended up being a relief when I ended up graduating from high school in 2015. As I just ended up being so fed up in it, just depressed from it all, on top of the bullying and all of that, that I essentially feel glad that I just left it, almost escape it. And as much as I have these negative views about high school, I do think that there are some things to be proud of, as no matter where you are or no matter where you come from, you should still be proud of some things, as it may not be perfect, but there's a lot you could take from it. And one of the things I took from it were career-related things. As the tutoring jobs I did, tutoring students in math, or just some of the coursework that I did in high school, helped to lay the foundation for me majoring in statistics, which all came from me not having any idea of what I wanted to do after college and just randomly picking math major because I thought maybe I could be a math teacher, which took me on this path that got me to decide, no, I want to be an applied math major, which was what I got my bachelor's in, and then later on deciding, hey, I want to do statistics, which is what I'm currently doing my grad degree in. So really interesting career paths that all started with a lot of ideas and a lot of groundwork that I got in high school. On the other hand, in many ways did plant the seeds for a lot of my personal growth, which led to the creation of this podcast. So after high school, I was left with a lot of personal scars that I ended up having to work through using therapy. I attended therapy right after high school, and I did that for about 3 or 4 years. I took a break around 2016, 2017, and then finally got back to it around 2018, 2019, when I was dealing with a lot more different issues besides a lot of my personal trauma. One of them being a breakup that I had a couple years ago in 2019. It was a breakup that had to do with my first relationship that ended up just making me feel more depressed, because it was a relationship that I was proud of and just enjoyed being in. I truly loved this other person that I was with, and the sad part was just recognizing that even though me and my girlfriend at the time were getting along with each other and we loved each other, we had to grow apart. And even though I understood that we had to make that hard choice, it still ended up hurting me and left me feeling more depressed and just figuring out who I am and what I want to do with my life. And that devastated me so much that I had to go back to therapy. And I did that therapy for a couple of years, and I remembered asking my therapist, who was I before relationship? Because when I was in the relationship, I thought that I was my best self when I was around her, because she brought a lot of qualities, or she helped to bring out a lot of qualities that I didn't realize I had. I felt much better. I was outgoing, I was adventurous, I was just funny, and a lot of things that just epitomized the best parts of who I am. And now that I'm single at the moment, I sometimes have doubts about whether or not that still exists in me anymore. And back then, in therapy, I brought that up with my therapist, and she told me that no, that's not true. Because what if that best version of you is always within you the whole time, and that this relationship that you were in was an opportunity for you to show that. So what if the focus now is to find more opportunities or even create more opportunities for you to show that side of yourself, that best side of you that you want to put forward. And that motivated me to really rethink life itself and think of what to focus on. And that got me to a point where I decided, hey, I want to put my best self forward, so why not do it through blogging? As not only did it give me an opportunity to show that, but it also got me an opportunity to present myself fully, as I was constantly misunderstood and misjudged growing up. And so, having not been given much chance to show that side of myself growing up, I feel that blogging at the time was the best way to do that. So, before this podcast, I tried out blogging for a bit. I wrote a couple of Tumblr blogs where I talked about my experiences as an autistic adult. And after a while, it was kind of interesting. It was kind of good. I mean, I really enjoyed the feedback that I got from my post. I really enjoyed the fact that I got myself out there and that people that I engaged with on Tumblr were actually interested in what I had to say and really appreciate the different perspectives that I gave to just experiences as an autistic adult. However, I got tired of blogging because, for one major reason, I don't have the patience to just sit through and write, as I prefer to just talk it out, which is much easier for me to do, or just communicate it without writing. And I remember relaying these concerns to my therapist and telling her that I just need a better creative medium than just blogging. And in response, my therapist said, hey, why don't you do podcasts? You told me before that you like podcasts, so why not do your own podcast? And I was like, are you sure? Because what if I'm not popular enough? What if I'm not good enough? I'm not that great of a conversationalist. Are you sure about that? And she said, you don't have to be. And besides, I know you worry about only getting 143 followers, but think of it this way. Those 143 followers, imagine all those people in one room. That's a lot of people, right? That's better than none, isn't it? And besides, at the end of the day, you want the right kind of people to be engaging with you, not just anybody, right? And I was like, yeah, sure. So it's better that you don't think too much about the quantity of things, but the quality of things. Especially the quality of the followers that you get and the quality of the content that you put out. As it's all about you. You know, authenticity and being true to yourself is how you do great things. And I remember hearing that and thinking, man, this reminds me a lot of a conversation that I had with this amateur music producer that I met in college for my undergrad. When I remember him asking me, how many people does it take to at least make an impact with our music? And I said, I don't know. And I remember that amateur music producer said, just one person. I said, how? Would you need a lot of people to get attention? And he's like, no. You just need at least one person. Because when someone is exposed to our music, it can change everything about how they see the world or how they think of things. And with that change, that one person may bring it and share it with other people. And it may even change that person's life and maybe their kids or maybe their grandkids and just so on and so forth. All because they had a shift in perspective or a shift in how they think of things or some kind of shift or maybe some kind of understanding about themselves that they didn't realize until they listened to our work. So at the end of it all takes one person. And so it was almost as if the universe was reminding me that essential message of quality over quantity, about the importance of intentional content versus an abundance of content. Pure abundance, specifically. And so when I thought of that, I was thinking, hey, it doesn't seem so bad after all. Maybe I should try a podcast. So I thanked my therapist for the session and I left. I decided to go to my car. And when I went into my car, I decided to pull up my phone just to GPS the way home. And when I was about to turn on my phone, I got hit with this ad by this company, Anchor, which was talking about this free podcasting app where you can edit, publish, and manage your podcast all from one app. And it's free. And Anchor, which is the platform that I'm using to host this podcast, man, it just felt as if it was a coincidence, as I just had to talk about podcasting, and then now I come into my car and I get hit with this ad saying, hey, you should start a podcast. It was almost as if it was a sign from the universe or so. And I know that not a lot of you folks out there are religious or spiritual, but I like to think of it that way. I mean, it doesn't seem to be coincidence to me that I'm hit with this podcasting ad right on the day that I talk about podcasting, or right when my therapist is talking to me about podcasting. So, it almost just felt as if I should do it. I felt beckoned to do it. And so I decided, you know what, let's just try it out. So I tried out podcasting, did a couple of random podcasts then and there, and did my best to research and understand some ways I could market my content and put myself out there. And then after a while of just trial and error and just constantly posting stuff out there, I got to a point where here I am doing podcasts, got TikTok, engaging with all you folks, and now having probably all these amazing and wonderful conversations I'm having with you all, or just each of you, and just being able to have an opportunity to share my ideas out there, and all of which I'm proud of. As while I'm still learning and growing and don't know all there is to know about autism and just all of that, I feel that I'm proud of just how far I've come and just how many things I've done and how many people I've gotten to interact with online. So to all my followers, friends, family, and just everyone out there listening to this podcast, I want to say thank you so much. It really means a lot to me to be able to meet all you folks and just be able to learn from so many different people, and just people who really share what my values of community and just humanity and just peace and just something meaningful beyond this three-dimensional material world that we all live in right now. All these things that really are the driving force of why I do these podcasts. Not just to share my ideas, but to connect, to form community, and to really offer some interesting ideas on different topics out there that relate to not just my experiences as an autistic adult and may in some ways connect to you, whether you're autistic or not, but also just to the world entire, in some degrees or not. And while we may disagree or have different takes on different issues, I do hope that these podcasts in some ways have given you different ways of looking at things or different ideas on how to approach it, and most importantly, help you all to understand me and where I'm coming from. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And I hope to keep doing these podcasts as long as I can. So, that's what I hope for. So anyway, I think this would be a good time to wrap up this podcast. But before I get to that, I want to make a quick announcement and say that I'm going to be taking 2 to 3 month break from this podcast, and part of it has to do with my schedule and just a lot of recent changes and development in my life that had to do with my work schedule, just some internships I've been applying to that I might be working on, and just trying my best to enjoy my life as a graduate student right now. As compared to before, I feel as if I have a lot more opportunity and freedom than before to explore and just be myself, feeling that I'm surrounded by the right kind of people that care and really value the things that I value, and most of all, life itself. I mean, part of the reason why I don't go on Instagram very often is that I'm so engrossed by life and its possibilities. I know life can be grim at times, but I believe that there's possibility. It's part of why I have the infinity symbol on my logo, not just because of its solidarity with the neurodiversity movement, but also just because it represents to me how we view life, just full of infinite possibility. And it's that possibility that drives me to explore and be curious. I'll get hurt along the way, and curiosity does kill the cat sometimes. But sometimes curiosity can be rewarding, even in times of failure. As failure can teach you a lot about life, as much as success can. And sometimes the beauty of life comes from the unexpected. And it's those kinds of things that I chase after no matter what. Because it's what moves me, it's what guides me, and it's what helps me to come to a place where I finally figure out what it means to be not just the kind of person that I want to be, but also being a fully realized and confident self. So I'm going to be taking a 2-month break from the podcast just to focus on my own life. So I won't be back until, say, mid-June or July, depending. I mean, I'll still be active on Instagram, just not in a very active role. So I might put some posts then and there, but I'm not going to be too active. But you can still catch me there. So I might pop by and say hi and all that. So even though I'm not going to be podcasting for a while, I'll still chime in on Instagram from time to time. So hope you all can catch me there. So with that said, that's the end of this podcast. And so thank you all for listening to this podcast. Hope you all like it. And I hope you all stay tuned for the next podcast. So thank you and take care. Hey, thank you all for listening to this podcast. If you guys like this channel, check out and subscribe to this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, wherever you all get your podcasts. For social media, you can follow me at The Autism Experience on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you all for listening. Stay tuned for more from The Autism Experience.